Are you sure I look all right? I mean, I don't look too young.
No, you look fine.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's silly to even wonder about care about what I look on a court.
Oh, hey, baby, come on. No, you look terrific.
Oh, come on! It's not a question of looking terrific. I want to look right. I mean, all those people are staring at me. The whole jury keeps staring at me.
You know why they're staring at you? Because you are probably the best-looking woman they have ever seen in their lives.
Oh, come on, you know what I mean. I want to make the right impression. It's hard to do in these stupid clothes.
Well, you know, I think your pregnancy is getting us a lot of sympathy.
Think so?
Yeah, I know so.
Oh, I hope so. I just keep hoping that jury won't have the heart to send a father to be to prison. I love you. I'm sitting there the past couple of days thinking about just how much I love you. Thinking about all the wonderful times we've had.
We're gonna have a million more of them, too, I promise.
You know, I wonder if there's some law of compensation. You know, you have so many good days, and you gotta pay for them all with all the bad days.
You know, honey, I don't think that life is that neatly arranged.
No, it isn't.
Is that Karr? Look at that. Look at that. It's a big limo.
Oh, I certainly hope it isn't more bad news.
Come on in. What are you doing? I mean, what are you doing driving that big limo?
Oh, you like that? That's the Underworld Special. It's bulletproof. I need that these days. Been getting a lot of threats since I took on this case. Nobody seems to want me to win.
Least of all me, thank you.
It's Geraldine's car. I borrowed it.
Yeah, well, sit down. Your car in the shot?
No, I just didn't... Well, I didn't think it'd be a good idea to be recognized driving over to see the defendant, and Geraldine offered me the use of her buggy.
Yeah, you took a big chance coming over here, Logan. Look, if you had a message for me, I think you should have gone through channels and seen me in the courtroom.
Oh, this is not for the courtroom.
Well, do you have any news? Is there any more evidence on the case?
Well, it's not new. Are you going to see Mike this morning before court convenes?
Well, sure. He usually comes by and picks me up. We drive in together so we can talk.
Well, terrific. Give me a chance to talk to you both at the same time.
About what?
Oh, come on. Have you got anything to say? Would you please tell us?
Well, look, I don't want to blow this out of proportion, but there's sort of been a renewed police investigation of Elliott Dorn.
Well, I haven't heard anything official.
Semi-official. Deborah Saxon's the one who's pushing it. She's also pushing the prosecuting attorneys, I might add.
That's probably
I'll get
Oh, good.
I was talking to Deborah the other day. We were talking
Look who's here, Mike.
Logan, what are you doing here?
Well, came by to talk a little business, and now that you're here, I won't have to repeat myself.
He has some mysterious report to give us on Elliott Dorn.
Have you broken his alibi?
Well, which alibi is that? I mean, he's already done an about-face on 2 different alibis. The first story he gave us was that he went to the movies all by himself, that old song. It didn't work very well. The second one was he was involved with a young woman.
Oh, a young married woman, and I'm afraid knowing Elliott, even I have to accept that possibility.
He said that wasn't the only reason he was protecting her name. Seems he didn't want his fiancée, Nola Madison, to find out about her.
But you said he retracted that statement, too.
Yeah, Deborah Saxon, she nailed him on it. Demanded that he name the woman involved or else. Didn't mention what the or else was, good thing. I mean, there's no way we could force him to talk.
True, he's not under indictment.
Well, he retracted the second alibi. Said he made it up. There never was a woman.
Logan, what's the point of all this? Is there some way we can use this information?
You're not suggesting that we call him as a defense witness. We can't do that just to attack his alibi.
But, Mike,
court wouldn't allow it.
Mike, if we could break him down, it would help us establish reasonable doubt.
Well, then we've got to do it, period. There's no question.
April, it wouldn't work. It would be a flagrant misuse of a witness to call him and then accuse him of the crime.
Well, I suppose I could call him as a prosecution witness.
You?
Oh, he'd make a dandy prosecution witness. I mean, think about it. He was married to the victim. He could testify as to your relationship with her, all of the problems, and so forth.
All right, Logan. He would be a logical witness for the prosecution.
Oh, well, how would that help?
Because then, in effect, he could become a witness for us when I cross-examine him.
And then we could force him to tell us what he did that night. Logan, that is a terrific idea.
Yes, it is, isn't it? I wish I could say it was mine, but it's not. It was Deborah's.
Logan, that's friendship above and beyond.
No. It's just my job, right? I mean, I'm supposed to get at the truth, not just get convictions.
Thanks.
I bet you the jury, you're behind all this, huh? You probably got him wrapped around your little finger.
Who, me?
Yeah, you. Look, I don't want to put Elliott Dorn on the stand. Come on, I got witnesses coming out of my ears.
Cliff, Elliott is going to make a wonderful witness for you. Don't forget he was living with Margot the whole time. He saw everything that went on between Margot and Draper, all the antagonism, all the fights.
Yes, but I've already established that. The jury knows that Draper Scott hated his mother-in-law. I'm not going to put him on the stand.
Cliff, just wait and see. Elliott wants to send Draper to prison as much as you do.
And why do you want to send him to prison, huh? I mean, aren't you supposed to be Draper Scott's friend?
I'm a police officer. First and foremost, I have to uphold the law. Now, I think if Elliott wants to say something, I think he should be allowed to say it. Just as I'm going to testify for you, too. You do remember the subpoena you issued me?
Well, I had to get a date with you some way.
Well, you have to stop meeting like this.
Well, I promise I'll be gentle. But I'm not putting Elliott Dorn on the stand. Now, look, I'm in charge of this case, right? Not Logan Swift.
Cliff, and you've already issued your subpoena.
Okay. I promise to put Elliott Dorn on the stand if you'll take me to dinner tonight.
You keep your promise, I'll keep mine.
That's what I said, Nancy. You just keep your eyes and ears open today. You may get a very special story.
Why, what do you mean? What's happening?
Well, the prosecution's going to call a surprise witness.
Who?
Margot's husband.
Ah, an interesting tactic. Since there's no love lost between him and Draper, he's bound to say something damaging.
Well, that's what they have in mind. But not all the damage may be done to Draper.
Look, why don't you go back to your seat now? The jury's starting to file.
Okay. Good luck. Have a good day. Look, Draper, there's that man again.
What man?
That policeman who testified the first day of the trial.
Hi, it's Sam Dwyer.
Why does he keep coming back here? He's not going to testify again.
He probably feels he's part of the case.
All rise. Hear ye, the criminal court of the county of Monticello is now in session. The Honorable Martin Oliveri presiding. Be seated.
Mr. Nelson, is the prosecution prepared to call its next witness?
Yes, sir, we are. The prosecution would like to call Deborah Saxon.
Deborah Saxon to the stand, please. Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name.
Deborah Saxon.
Be seated.
Miss Saxon, what's your occupation?
I am a police officer, detective first class.
And are you the investigating officer in this case?
I was one of the detectives assigned to the case, along with several others. We usually work in teams in cases involving homicide.
Were you on the scene of the crime?
Yes, I was, several times. Although I wasn't there the night it occurred. I began my investigation along with my partner, Detective Calvin Stoner, the following morning.
And what were your conclusions?
Well, they were only temporary conclusions, of course. That the facts stated by the building employees seemed to be correct. That Mrs. Dorn arrived at her apartment about 8 o'clock, went straight up to her penthouse, and Draper Scott followed a few moments later.
Now, are you satisfied that the only way in or out of that penthouse is through the private elevator?
Yes, I am. The service elevator was locked securely at that hour. We made sure of that.
And no one could have gotten on the elevator from another floor. Is that correct?
Well, somebody could have gotten on in the basement. You see, the elevator does go to the basement.
Are you suggesting that that's what happened?
No. In fact, Oscar, the doorman, stated that when he saw Mrs. Dorn enter the elevator that nobody was with her, so she did go up alone.
And Mr. Scott went up alone, too.
Yes.
So, aren't you forced to draw some rather obvious conclusions from those two facts?
The facts were obvious, yes. But it didn't preclude the idea that somebody could have been waiting in Margot's apartment for her when she got home. She could have gotten hit over the head the minute she walked in.
Detective, I didn't ask you for any theories here.
Oh, excuse me, I thought you did.
Well, let's pursue the idea that someone was waiting in the apartment when Mrs. Dorn got home. Now, how would this someone get by the defendant, Draper Scott?
Well, he was in a state of shock. Seeing his mother-in-law like that?
Now, are you saying, then, that this so-called murderer would be able to get by Mr. Scott without him seeing him?
Well, it isn't impossible. And supposing the murderer did get by him onto the elevator, he could have escaped through the basement.
However, the murderer did not get by Mr. Scott by his own testimony.
Oh, well, I see, I haven't heard all the testimony.
But you did take a statement from him, didn't you? And in that statement, he swore that there was no one in the apartment when he arrived there, that no one got by him and got into the elevator, and that the apartment was 100% empty when he arrived.
I think that was very honest of him, don't you? I mean, if he was the killer, I think maybe he would have suggested that somebody was in the apartment and got past him into the elevator.
Detective, please just answer the questions that I direct to you. Scarlett, you're making me look bad. The truth is that the police report showed that Draper Scott and Margot Huntington Dorn arrived in the apartment less than a minute separate from each other. They were in that apartment alone. And that Draper Scott went to that apartment only because he was angry with his mother-in-law. And that within 5 minutes he was on the telephone calling the police.
Honor, we object to this premature summation.
Sustained. Mr. Nelson, please don't forget that you have a witness on the stand.
Yes, Your Honor. How could I forget? I just thought it would be valuable to recreate the crime according to the police report.
Very well, then let's get to the point.
Thank you, Your Honor. Bailiff, this is a schematic drawing of the apartment where Margot Dorn lives. This is the drawing that the police used in their investigation, isn't it?
Yes, it was. It wasn't very helpful, though.
Well, it's very helpful to me. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if you notice, here's the lobby. Over here is the penthouse side of the building where Margot Dorn's apartment is. Now, the gray are the passenger elevators. The red is the private penthouse elevator going only to the penthouse, and the green are the service elevators going to the penthouse on this side. Now, if you'll notice that when the service elevator is locked, the only entrance to the penthouse is through the fire stairs. Now, the fire stairs were locked from the inside, weren't they?
Yes, they were.
What about the terrace? Is there any access from the roof to the terrace?
No, there wasn't.
So then, the murderer could not go from the terrace to the roof with some form of miraculous escape, hmm?
We ruled that out as a possibility.
Good. Then the only other choice, I would think, provided, of course, that the murderer could not fly, was that Mr. Scott did not see the murderer go past him. Or we could accept this scenario, which is the police report itself. On the night of January 25th, Margot Dorn returned to her building. She spoke to Oscar Miller, the doorman, and told him that she was expecting her son-in-law, Draper Scott, a man that Oscar knew by sight. She said that he was to be sent straight upstairs without being announced. Now, the doorman had just come on duty and was working alone that night. Meanwhile, Draper Scott was parked outside at 123 Rivershore Drive, 30 or 40 feet from the entrance of the building. Only a few moments later, Draper Scott himself entered the building lobby, having seen his mother-in-law come in. He was full of anger. He was ready to do battle. The doorman gave him his mother's message, and impatiently he rang for the elevator to come down again. The doorman was shocked at Mr. Scott's demeanor, and he stated during the interrogation that he looked as though he had the wrath of God. In the penthouse apartment, Margot Dorn was just removing her coat. And Mr. Scott...
Oh, my, aren't we prompt?
I was here 10 minutes ago. I was waiting in the car until you got home.
Don't. Would you like a little drink?
No, I want an explanation.
About what?
You know what. I told you about it on the phone. New York. My talk with Mrs. Henson.
Oh, darling Mrs. Henson. And how is the old girl? Does she still look like a department store mannequin? I suppose the paint must have chipped a little bit by now.
Henson made a deathbed confession to his wife.
Oh, did he? How disappointing. I expected something a little less mundane from dear old David. As for myself, I hope to be on my deathbed drinking a dry martini and toasting the devil.
And I wish you were in hell right now.
Nasty words, darling. Knew it wasn't going to be a fun evening, but I didn't think you were going to get violent.
Did you cost me the job? Did you tell Hinson not to hire me?
Why not? I thought it was best for all concerned.
It's true.
Oh, for heaven's sake, Draper, of course. I didn't want you dragging April away from everything, away from her home, from her family, any more than she wanted to go. I did it for April and for you.
What, are you crazy? You think I wanted to lose that job?
It is suddenly a little warm in
Now,
here.
come on, Margot, tell me. Tell me why you did this wonderful thing for me.
Because, darling, I didn't think you would be very happy in New York, away from everything you know and everyone you know. Away from your associate, Mike Karr.
But that was my decision to make.
For heaven's sake, face the fact it was Mike Karr that David Henson's firm wanted in the first place, not you. You were a very poor substitute. In fact, without Mike Karr, you would be nothing but a dismal failure, Draper. And if you want a little more truth, if you had taken that job, you wouldn't have made it. You don't have the capability of handling so important a job as that. You would have been a failure, you would have been a humiliation to yourself, and you would have been taking my daughter away for nothing.
That's all you cared about, isn't it? Keeping April here. You would have done anything to keep her here.
You're right. I would do anything to keep her here. I lost her once 25 years ago, and I'm not going to lose her again, especially not to a sniveling incompetent like you.
Damn you, Margot. I hope I see you rot in hell!
No, that didn't happen!
Mrs. Scott, I'm sure you know that such behavior cannot be tolerated in this court.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I'm very sorry.
Mr. Nelson, do you have any further questions for this witness?
No, Your Honor, I don't.
Very well. Mr. Karr, do you wish to cross-examine?
No questions, Your Honor.
Witness may step down. Does the prosecution wish to call another witness?
Yes, we'd like to call Elliott Dorn to the stand, please.
Elliott Dorn to the stand.
Mr. Dorn?
No, I don't blame my wife for the failure of our marriage. There were just too many differences between us, and I didn't have the strength of character to overcome them.
Would you say that it was an amicable separation?
Yes, I would say it was. We just decided to go our separate ways and not interfere in each other's lives.
However, you lived together for almost a year, is that correct?
Yes.
Well, during that time period, did you observe the relationship between your wife and her family?
Yes, we saw them fairly often. Margot frequently spoke to me about them. By family, of course, she meant Mr. and Mrs. Scott.
Yes, I do. Now, would you say that there was some antagonism between the defendant, Draper Scott, and your wife?
I'm sure Mrs. Scott wouldn't deny that.
Please, answer yes or no.
Yes, there was antagonism.
Why?
Well, Margot was a very strong personality and dominating kind of person, you know, and she was used to getting her own way. She hadn't discovered motherhood until very late in life. When she did discover it, she became extremely possessive.
Objection, Your Honor. That answer is not responsive.
I was just trying to explain. Sorry, why?
We'll give the witness some latitude. Mr. Karr, objection overruled.
Respectfully accept, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Go on, Mr. Dorn.
Well, there was a tug of war between them, Margot and Mr. Scott, over April's affection and attention. And one of the weapons Margot used was her considerable wealth. But for instance, without telling Mr. Scott, she paid a third of the cost of their new home.
Would you please repeat that for the jury?
Yes, my wife secretly made a down payment on the home the Scotts wished to purchase. The home they're living in right now.
Make sure he knows that I've repaid half of that money.
Don't worry, I will.
Did Mr. Scott ever become aware of this charity?
Yes, he did, and he was extremely upset about it.
So, you see that there were many quarrels between Mrs. Dorn and
Mr. Scott, that the night of January 25th was just the culmination of all of these quarrels between them.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
No more questions?
Mr. Karr?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Dorn, you said you were living apart from your wife.
Yes.
How long had it been since you'd last seen Mrs. Dorn?
Several weeks.
Can you give me the exact date?
I'm afraid I can't.
Why not?
Well, I have no particular reason to remember the date.
Or the discussion?
I remember the discussion, all right.
Good. What was it about?
I don't see why that matters.
It matters to me, Mr. Dorn, and it may matter to this case.
Well, we discussed our marital relationship and the arrangements that had to be made.
But you don't recall when this discussion took place?
I'm afraid I don't.
Would it help if I refreshed your memory?
Look, I don't see how this has got to...
Isn't it a fact that the last time you saw your wife was the night of January 25th? The very night Margot Dorn was clubbed to death?
Seems as though a harmony is hard to find, always on our mind, and frustrated days pass without sight, the edge of night